Hi, and welcome to my video class about Kim Casey's One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is a famous novel from the 1960s, and it is often seen as a critique of the way mental patients were treated in that era, also a critique or criticism of psychotherapy and electroshock therapy. The book was quite a success, still is quite a popular novel, and it was turned into a film by Milos Forman, and Jack Nicholson, as you can see on the picture, played the protagonist, McMurphy. Now, what is the story about? The story of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is set in a mental institution, and the narrator is Chief Bromden. Chief Bromden is a tall Native American, and he pretends to be deaf and mute. So he pretends that he cannot speak and that he cannot hear, so that the people would leave him alone in the institution. However, one day there is an admission. There is a new patient arriving in the ward, and that is McMurphy, Randall Patrick McMurphy. And he has faked insanity in order to spend his punishment for raping a girl and for other criminal acts rather on a mental institution than in prison. So from the moment he walks into that door, it is clear that McMurphy is not insane as the other patients are, and he you could say that he is almost starting a revolution or several small revolutions between the patients and the nurses who are actually working there on this ward, especially the head nurse, Nurse Ratched, that you might know from the Netflix series. There's some kind of power struggle between the two of them. Now, if you want to read the novel, please do. It's a classic. In the unit, we are going to read a short fragment that you can find on page 8, 9, 10, and 11. Now, I would like you to read it carefully. If you haven't read it, pause the video first, and then we will discuss the comprehension check questions. Yeah. If you have read it, you can follow now, and we can go to the first comprehension question. There's 3 of them. And my question is that in the first paragraph, Chief Bromden is talking about the shock shop. Now, my question is, what do you think he means with that, or by that, the shock shop? And the answer is that it's a reference to the room where the patients were brought to get electroshock therapy. Now, electroshock therapy was and still is a treatment in which electricity is actually brought into the brain of the patient. Back in the 60s, it was also quite often used as a way of punishing patients that were too wild or too loud. The shock shop, as you can see on the picture here. The second question that I have is, next to the use of electroshock therapy as a matter of discipline, can you in this fragment find other instances of abuse or mistreatment of the patients? There's quite some references. For example, the staff who works there, the nurses, actually eat the food that was meant for the patients. The mattresses stink of pee, which shows that the hygiene in the institution is not what it should be. And then, if you go to page 9, there is in the middle a paragraph in which Chief Bromden talks about abuse in the shower room. Now, whenever a new patient is admitted, he has to go to the shower room to get clean, and then the nurses, the male nurses, take a thermometer and Vaseline to take the temperature of the new patient, but this is always paired with a lot of violence. And then the showers are turned on very high so that there's a lot of noise and you wouldn't hear what is happening in the shower room from the outside hallway. So this is a clear reference to mistreatment of new patients in the shower room by the nurses, the male nurses staff. Yeah. How is McMurphy then, as a protagonist, how is he different from the other people who are there, the normal admissions, the usual admissions? Like I told you, from the moment he enters that institution, it is clear that he is not scared. And we see that because he makes a lot of noise. He talks a lot. He's laughing all the time, making jokes with the patients. And so everybody has a feeling that this is a very unusual admission that is entering the ward today. Good. This was it for the comprehension questions. The next thing that I want to do is to talk a bit about the language in One Flew of the Cuckoo's Nest and language in general. Now, if you talk about English, there's different categories. We are now on page 12, follow along. And there's 4 categories that I want to discuss today. And I would like you to, for every category, try to write down an example on page 12. So the first category is, of course, Standard English, or RP, received pronunciation. And where would you hear that? Of course, on television or radio, the BBC. Also the Queen, if you have ever heard a speech, if you ever heard the Queen or Prince Charles or William speech, the English that they have is, of course, Standard English. Yeah. The next category then is dialect, and a dialect is a form of language that is connected to a geographical area. So it's the language that people speak in a particular part of the country. In Belgium, we have many dialects, in the UK as well. We have Cockney, for example, is a dialect from northeast London. Geordie, which is if you go more up north, England to Newcastle. Have a look at the YouTube video that I will send you. There's a woman who's doing impressions of the different dialects of the UK. She's really a genius. And here you see a map of the different dialects in the United Kingdom. The third category is slang, and I think that is something that you guys are familiar with. Slang is a very informal language that is mostly spoken by a smaller group, a particular group of people. For example, teenagers like yourself. Social media slang is also something that has been on the rise. For example, the word lol, yeah, laughing out loud, or YOLO, yeah. So these are examples of slang. If you would say them, for example, to an old person, this person might not understand what you are saying, and that is typical for slang. It is really connected to a group of people and not the entire population. And that leaves us with the last category, swear words and taboo expressions. These are rude or offensive words that you actually should not use at all. Very often on YouTube or on public television, they will be bleeped out. Like whenever somebody says a word like that, there will be a bleep and then you cannot hear it. And so that is the last category. Now, the interesting thing is that these 4 categories can be found in the fragment of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. So I would like you now to go back to the text and try to see if you can find examples of dialect, American dialect, and of course, of slang, and of swear words or taboo expressions. And this last one might be a bit harder. We're going to discuss that in class, but try and have a look and highlight it with the corresponding color in the text. Okay, the next thing that I want you to do when we talk about language is, of course, vocabulary. Now, we are on page 13, and I would like you to have a look at the words that I have here. You can also see them on the slide, and tell me whether you would use them to describe somebody who is sane, who is mentally healthy, or somebody who is insane, or if you would use these words to characterize insanity. Yeah, so just write an S or an I there. We will also discuss this in class. And then the last exercise, oops, you were not supposed to see that. The last exercise that I want you to do is make correct combinations. There you have 7 common mental disorders, and I would like you to match the disorder with the correct definition. So I have mental illness, an anxiety disorder, phobia, obsessive compulsive disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, hypochondria, and affective disorder. If this is hard for you, you can of course go online and try and find the correct definitions. But let me show you the answers. Here they are. So mental illness D, anxiety disorder G, phobia A, obsessive compulsive disorder F, post-traumatic stress disorder B, hypochondria E, affective disorder C. If you have any questions at all, ask me when we see each other back in class. So it only rests me to say goodbye and see you in class. Bye.